You've poured your heart and soul into your tomatoes and peppers, nurturing them all summer long. And now, in August, just when that juicy harvest is almost within reach, you see it, a black, sunken, unsightly spot on the blossom end of the fruit. Sound familiar? That's blossom end rot. And today we're going to dive into how to save your harvest. And I promise, you'll learn that it's actually not a disease at all. And pests aren't to blame. In fact, the truth might even surprise seasoned gardeners. Let's call a spade a spade. Blossom end rot isn't a fungus, nor is it an infection you can spread with your tools. It's a physiological disorder. Simply put, it's not contagious. Instead, it's an internal nutritional glitch within the plant, much like a person suddenly struggling to absorb a vital vitamin. Our job is to understand why this glitch occurred and how to fix it quickly. Alright, let's take a closer look at this unfortunate fruit, that black, dry, sunken spot right on its blossom end. It's pretty disheartening, isn't it? It feels like all your hard work has gone to waste. Your first instinct is probably to grab some kind of treatment and spray everything. But hold on, stop right there. That's the biggest mistake you can make. Let's start with the crucial point. This alarming spot on the blossom end of your tomato or pepper is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not a disease that spread from a neighbouring plant. It's a cry for help from the plant itself. Imagine it's like a red warning light on your car's dashboard. You wouldn't just paint over the light to make it disappear, would you? No, you'd immediately start looking for the root cause. And it's the same situation here. The spot is an external symptom of a deep, internal problem. The real enemy of your harvest is lurking unseen. It could be in the roots, the stems, or a nutritional imbalance affecting the entire plant. And until we understand exactly what's gone wrong internally, we'll just be fighting a losing battle, wasting precious time, and, most frustratingly, losing your precious fruit one by one. Grasping this simple fact is already half the battle won. And this brings us to the number one mistake that 9 out of 10 home gardeners make. When we spot that telltale rot, our immediate thought is, aha, a fungus. It must be blight. And what's our first instinct? Exactly. We grab the sprayer and load it up with fungicides. Out come the copper sulfate Bordeaux mixture and all sorts of azoles and oxals. We painstakingly drench our plants, leaves and developing fruits, firmly convinced we're eradicating the disease. Now here's the harsh reality. All of this is utterly useless. You're just throwing away your effort, time and money. Why? Because blossom end rot, that's what we're talking about, has absolutely nothing to do with fungi or bacteria. You cannot kill it with chemicals. It's like trying to treat a broken bone with aspirin. You'll get absolutely zero results. While you're busy spraying your plants, trying to defeat a non-existent enemy, the actual problem continues to escalate. Your plants keep suffering, and new tomatoes and peppers continue to develop those same unsightly spots, one after another. You are, quite literally, pouring water into sand. So, the first rule for saving your harvest, put those fungicides aside. They are absolutely no help to us here. The truth is, this is a very specific cry for help from the plant itself. And what it's screaming about is the lack of one single, yet absolutely vital, element. Imagine building a large house. You've got the bricks, the workers are all in place, and everything's going according to plan. But suddenly, on the very top floor, in the furthest room, you run out of cement. What happens then? The wall can't hold its shape. It simply crumbles. Exactly the same thing is happening with your tomato. The fruit is that house under construction, and the cement that holds its cells together, that's calcium. Yes, it's all about calcium. It's responsible for the strength and elasticity of the cell walls. When there's enough calcium, the fruit grows smooth, firm and healthy. But as soon as a deficiency occurs, the most distant cells are the first to suffer. And where are those? Precisely, at the very bottom of the fruit, right where the flower once was. Their walls weaken, they break down, and the tissue dies. And there you have your black spot. This isn't a fungus eating your tomato. It's simply falling apart from the inside due to a lack of essential building material. Here's the main paradox that often stumps many gardeners. Chances are your soil already has plenty of calcium. You've likely added dolomite lime, regular garden lime, or crushed eggshells. And you'd be right. In 99% of cases, the soil isn't actually calcium deficient. So what's the real problem then? Imagine a massive warehouse absolutely overflowing with food. But in the city, there's a famine. Why? Because all the roads are washed out and not a single truck can get from the warehouse to the stores. It's the exact same story with your tomato plants. The soil is that warehouse packed with calcium. And the roots and stems, they're the transport system, the trucks. If that system breaks down, your plant will starve, even if it's swimming in a sea of nutrients. The problem isn't a lack of calcium. The problem is that for some reason, the plant can't access it and deliver it where it's needed, to the growing fruits. Our truck has broken down, so our primary goal isn't to flood the warehouse with more supplies, but to repair the roads and the transport system. We need to figure out exactly what's preventing calcium from travelling through the plant. The number one culprit here is inconsistent watering. This creates the yo-yo effect, those dramatic swings that our plants absolutely dread. First, we might forget to water. Perhaps we're away for the weekend. Or there's an intense heat wave. The soil dries out completely, turning hard as a rock. In this hardened soil, roots are physically unable to absorb water. Now here's a crucial point. Calcium travels through the plant only when dissolved in water. Without a stable flow of water, there's no stable flow of calcium. Then we return, seeing the telltale signs, drooping leaves and parched earth. What's our reaction? We grab the watering can or hose and unleash a veritable flood. We drench the plants wholeheartedly, just to make sure. And ironically, at this very moment, the roots' predicament only worsens. Just moments ago, they were suffocating from thirst, and now they begin to suffocate from a lack of oxygen in the waterlogged soil. The plant is under profound stress. Its vascular system, its internal transport network, simply cannot cope with such extreme fluctuations. This drought then deluge cycle is the surest and quickest path to blossom end rot. Roots are the very heart of a plant, tirelessly pumping water and nutrients throughout. But under stressful conditions, they simply can't do their job effectively. When the soil dries out, those fine primary feeder roots, the ones doing most of the nutrient uptake, begin to shrivel and die back. They effectively go into a dormant state to conserve resources. Then, when we suddenly drench the soil with water, these damaged roots can't instantly wake up and spring back into full action. They need time to recover and regrow. Yet the fruits continue to develop, and right this very moment they desperately need calcium. This creates a scenario where the pump is broken, but the plant's demand for water and nutrients is at its peak. Consequently, water and calcium are preferentially directed to the leaves, which are actively transpiring, but they often don't reach the fruits, sitting at the very end of this transport chain. It's as if the plant has to choose, prioritise saving its leaves or feeding its developing fruit. And unfortunately, that choice often doesn't favour our future harvest. But there's another silent enemy we often overlook, or even create ourselves: damaged roots. We all love keeping our garden beds pristine, don't we? Weeding out those pesky plants, breaking up the soil with a hoe to prevent crusting, helping the soil breathe. However, come August, when the root systems of tomatoes and peppers have spread out extensively, that kind of diligent cultivation can actually be devastating. Tomato roots especially reach much farther into the upper soil layer than most of us realise. Every swing of that hoe within a 30 to 40 centimetre or 12 to 16 inch radius of the stem is essentially an unanaesthetised surgical operation. You're severing those crucial, fine feeder roots responsible for absorbing nutrients. The plant loses a significant portion of its nourishing system, and even with optimal watering, it simply won't be able to draw enough water and calcium from the soil. So, remember this. In August, be extremely cautious with that hoe around your plants. It's far better to mulch the soil than to continually disturb it. Another less obvious culprit lies in the very chemistry of your soil, specifically its acidity or pH level. Calcium is a bit finicky. Plants can only absorb it efficiently when the soil is neutral to slightly alkaline. If your soil is too acidic, a common issue in peaty or loamy soils, a chemical lockout occurs. The calcium essentially gets tied up by other elements, becoming unavailable to your plants. It's present in the soil, but the roots simply can't access it. The same problem can arise in highly alkaline, saline soils, where calcium also becomes locked up. So, if blossom end rot is a recurring problem year after year, even with proper watering, it's worth checking your soil's pH. You can easily do this with simple test strips available at any garden centre. Your garden beds might just need some sweetening, an adjustment to raise the pH, using dolomite lime or garden lime. Sometimes, with the best of intentions, we inadvertently create our own problems. We all want our tomatoes to grow big and juicy, with strong, vibrant green plants. So, we often start fertilizing them heavily, sometimes even overdoing it. We might generously apply organic concoctions like manure tea, chicken droppings, or green fertilizers, or even sprinkle chemical ammonium nitrate. All of these are rich sources of nitrogen. Nitrogen is, of course, vital. It's essential for developing lush leaves and strong stems. However, come August, an excess of nitrogen can actually work against us. Firstly, the plant begins to go to leaf, focusing its energy on developing a massive amount of green foliage at the expense of fruit production. All its vital resources are diverted to the leaves. Secondly, and this is crucial, an excess of nitrogen, as well as potassium and magnesium, directly antagonizes calcium. These nutrients essentially compete with calcium for absorption and transport within the plant's vascular system. As a result, calcium often loses this battle. The plant readily absorbs nitrogen, leaving little energy or room for calcium uptake. The end result? A magnificent lush green plant, but with fruit that's rotting on the vine. Sometimes, even the weather can play a cruel trick and lead to blossom end rot even when you've done everything else perfectly. Picture a scorching August day. The sun beats down and a dry wind whips through the air. What does a plant do in such conditions? It actively evaporates moisture through its leaves to cool itself down, a process known as transpiration, and it's an incredibly intense process. A huge amount of water evaporates from the leaf surfaces and the roots go into overdrive, desperately trying to compensate for this loss. The entire flow of water, along with the dissolved calcium it carries, rushes towards the leaves. However, the fruits which transpire far less simply don't get enough of this crucial supply. Essentially, the leaves steal from the developing fruits, hogging all the water and nutrients for themselves. So, even if your soil is perfectly moist, under extreme heat and low air humidity, the plant's fruits can still suffer from a critical calcium deficiency. However, in a greenhouse, you might encounter the exact opposite situation. You might think, no scorching heat, high humidity, regular watering, ideal conditions, but it's not that simple. Let's recall that calcium moves through the plant along with the water stream, a flow primarily driven by evaporation from the leaves, what we call transpiration. Now, what happens in a closed, poorly ventilated greenhouse, especially at night or on cloudy days? The air humidity approaches 100%. The air becomes saturated with water vapour, and evaporation from the leaf surfaces virtually halts. The water flow within the plant slows down significantly, or even stops entirely. Our transportation conveyor comes to a standstill. Even if there's plenty of calcium in both the soil and the roots, it simply stops reaching the developing fruits. It essentially gets stuck halfway. Therefore, regular ventilation of your greenhouse isn't just a measure against issues like blight. It's also a crucial condition for ensuring your plants receive proper nutrition. So, you've stepped into your garden and seen that dreadful sight. What do you do right now, this very moment? No need to panic or rip out the plant. Our tomatoes need immediate first aid, a kind of plant resuscitation. And fortunately, it's possible. There's a method that delivers calcium to the fruits as quickly as possible, bypassing the damaged root system. Since our main pump is on the fritz, we'll use an alternative route. We're going to feed the plant through its leaves. This method is known as foliar feeding. Leaves are capable of absorbing nutrients directly through their surface. This works much faster than root absorption, providing an almost instant effect. Think of it like an IV drip for a person who can't absorb vitamins through their stomach. Our job now is to prepare the right cocktail and apply it correctly. The quickest and most effective method is foliar spraying with a calcium nitrate solution. This fertilizer dissolves easily in water and provides calcium in a readily available form for plants. The recipe is straightforward. Dissolve about 5 to 10 grams of calcium nitrate, which is roughly a heaped teaspoon, in 10 litres of water. If calcium nitrate isn't available, you can use pharmaceutical-grade calcium chloride, often sold in ampules at pharmacies. Dilute 1 ampule of 10% solution in 3 to 5 litres of water. Spray generously, ensuring to cover both sides of the leaves and, importantly, the fruits themselves, especially newly set ones. It's best to apply this solution in the evening, after sunset, or on a cloudy day, to prevent it from evaporating too quickly and potentially scorching the leaves. This treatment can be repeated in 5 to 7 days. Consider this an emergency measure. But let's be clear, foliar spraying is just like giving someone a painkiller for a toothache. The pain will subside for a while, but the underlying problem, the bad tooth itself, isn't going anywhere. Our foliar feeding is a temporary fix, meant to save the fruits that are actively developing right now. It gives them the essential calcium they need in this very moment. However, the core issue, our broken transport system, still remains. The root system is still under stress, and watering hasn't been properly regulated. As soon as the effect of our painkiller wears off, blossom end rot will simply reappear on the next younger set of fruits. So, after administering this first aid, we can't afford to relax. We need to immediately move on to the main treatment. We must fix the mechanism itself, restore normal root function, and establish a stable, consistent delivery of nutrients from the soil. Otherwise, we'll be endlessly chasing this problem with the sprayer until the first frost hits. The key to solving this is to get your watering right. Forget about splashing a little water on your plants every day. That kind of shallow watering actually does more harm than good. It only moistens the top couple of inches of soil, which encourages shallow roots to grow. These are the first to suffer when the soil dries out, while your deeper, essential roots remain parched in dry soil. Proper watering in August should be infrequent but very generous. Your goal is to thoroughly soak the soil to a depth of at least 8 to 12 inches, reaching the main root zone. Aim to water once every 5 to 7 days, depending on the weather, but make sure to give each plant at least a bucket full of water. The best time to do this is in the early morning or late evening, and remember to apply water strictly at the base of the plant, avoiding wetting the leaves or fruits. This regimen will help maintain consistent moisture in the root zone, preventing drastic shifts from drought to waterlogged conditions. Your roots will be comfortable and able to continuously absorb water and calcium without interruption. So what's your secret weapon in the battle for consistent soil moisture? It's mulch. That's right. Common grass clippings, straw, hay, or even dried, seedless weeds. A layer of mulch, just 5 to 10 centimetres, about 2 to 4 inches, thick, works absolute wonders. First, it acts like a protective blanket, shielding your soil from the scorching sun. The ground underneath stays cooler, ensuring your plant roots remain at a comfortable temperature. Second, mulch dramatically reduces water evaporation from the surface. Your soil stays moist for much longer, meaning you can water less frequently. Third, it prevents a hard crust from forming on the soil, keeping it loose, airy and well aerated, allowing roots to breathe freely. And finally, as it slowly breaks down, mulch enriches your soil with vital organic matter, boosting its fertility. Mulching is arguably the simplest, cheapest, and most incredibly effective way to reduce stress on your plant's root systems and ensure they thrive. What about fruits that are already showing signs of blossom end rot? those with the telltale black spot. Sadly, there's no saving them. The spot won't disappear or heal. The tissue in that area is already dead. So without hesitation, remove them from the plant. Do this carefully to avoid damaging the vine or stem. Why is this necessary? First, these affected fruits will never develop properly. They'll just ripen prematurely, staying small and tough. Second, and this is crucial, your plant is still wasting precious energy and nutrients trying to sustain these compromised fruits. By removing the diseased fruit, you redirect those vital resources towards the growth and development of healthy new fruits. It's like telling your plant, don't waste your efforts on a lost cause. Focus on the healthy ones instead. This approach helps the plant recover faster and produce a much better yield from its remaining healthy fruits. So you might be wondering, can you actually eat these tomatoes? Is it dangerous? After all, they certainly don't look very appealing. Let me put your mind at ease. It's perfectly safe. It's important to remember that blossom end rot is neither an infection nor a fungus. The affected area itself contains no harmful microorganisms or toxins. It's simply plant tissue that has died off due to a calcium deficiency. So all you need to do is take a knife and carefully cut off the damaged, dark and firm part. The rest of the tomato or pepper is healthy, juicy and completely edible. Sure, it might not be as sweet as a perfectly healthy fruit that ripened on the vine, but for processing, into juice, leco, adjika or tomato paste, it's absolutely ideal. So don't throw away this harvest. Simply remove the damaged part and put it to good use. Now that emergency measures have been taken and this year's harvest is secured, let's look to the future to ensure this problem never troubles you again. Prevention is your best defense. Start your preparations early. In fall or early spring, when you're getting your garden beds ready, amend the soil with pH balancing agents like dolomitic lime, garden lime, or wood ash. This isn't just a simple feeding, it's a fundamental recalibration of your soil. You're essentially unlocking the mechanism that prevented roots from taking up calcium. Also, remember the golden rule for late summer feeding: less nitrogen, more potassium, and phosphorus. Nitrogen encourages lush, leafy growth, often at the expense of fruit development. Potassium, on the other hand, is the plant's main delivery service, helping transport all essential nutrients, including our precious calcium, throughout the entire plant. And finally, the smartest move of all: choose resistant varieties. Plant breeders aren't working in vain. Today, there are many hybrids specifically developed to genetically better cope with stress and absorb calcium more efficiently. When buying seeds, simply look for the label, resistant to blossom end rot. This is your ultimate insurance policy against future disappointments. Now let's connect the dots and reveal a crucial secret that many gardeners might not even realise. Spraying, fertilising, checking soil pH, all of that is important. But the biggest and most common mistake gardeners make in August is trying to water away the problem. Seeing dry soil and rotting fruits, we grab the watering can and drench our plants daily. However, this only adds more stress to the root system. Roots either drown from too much water or dry out completely, and this constant cycle completely disrupts the mechanism for calcium transport. The key turning point in fighting blossom end rot comes when you realise the problem isn't a lack of calcium in the soil, but a broken elevator that's supposed to deliver that calcium to the fruits. And that elevator is actually a stable, properly functioning root system. That's why mulching and infrequent deep watering are 100 times more effective than any emergency sprays. You're not just treating a symptom, you're fixing the root cause. So, to sum it up, blossom end rot isn't a death sentence for your harvest. It's a signal that you urgently need to get your watering right, mulch your beds, and reconsider your feeding schedule. Don't panic or reach for harsh chemicals. Simply provide your plants with stability. Thanks for watching this video to the end. I hope your tomatoes and peppers are now safe and sound. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more tips. Now, a question for you. How do you combat blossom end rot? Share your proven methods and clever hacks in the comments below. Let's build the most comprehensive knowledge base together.